I'm Kaylen.
And I'm Courtney, and today we will be continuing our conversation about Otto F's business after 1935.
We will start by discussing Eggy's professional relationship with Philip C. Dushnis, how profit became a major motivation for him to cut up even more manuscripts, and the progression of his business up until and even after his death.
We will tell you the story by walking you through representative manuscripts from Eggy's collection, which are housed here at the University of South Carolina. In 1935, Eggy was developing an ambitious portfolio of Bible leaves, 4 from manuscripts and the rest from printed books. It would be a fortuitous venture in many ways. A primary supplier of rare Bibles was Philip C. Dushnis, a young dealer in New York City. Eggy had bought heavily from a Dushnis catalog in 1935, and through his purchases had made a connection to Dushnis as a potential seller of fragments. Dushnis said he would be prepared to list manuscript pages if Eggy could provide a steady stream of similar items. Eggy, by this point, was tearing up an abundance of manuscript books and quickly sent a consignment.
This connection to Dushnis was a lucky break, for Eggy's business had begun to flounder in 1935 at the height of the Depression. His collaboration with the Lima Public Library showed decreased profits year over year, and he himself was unable to sell as many fragments as he would have liked. He took a long vacation in the spring of 1935 to Canada and the Pacific Northwest, then down to San Diego. Along the way, he acquired manuscripts and printed books, some of them for his Bible portfolios.
Then, when he got home, he bought a brand new car. Added to the nearly $5,000 Eggy had already invested in the Bible project, his combined outlay led him to panic. He enlisted Dushnis as an East Coast agent, started pressuring the Lima librarians to sell more fragments, and freshened his inventory by cutting up his better quality manuscripts. Some he had just acquired at Dawson's in L.A., while others were plundered from his private library.
The portfolio of 37 Bible pages saved him. Entitled Original Leaves from Famous Bibles 9 Centuries, the compilation sold so well that by 1938, Eggy issued a second edition with 60 leaves. 200 sets of the first edition were published, each selling for $50. By 1938, Eggy banked a net profit of $5,000, enough to buy a modest house. Naturally, he was relieved at this financial success, but it changed him. Making money, he realized, would require cutting up more and better manuscripts. Initially out of desperation, and then out of self-indulgence, he undertook the biblioclasty that he would be reviled for in modern times.
The manuscripts he cut up at this time included a Renaissance Italian volume of the Comedies of Terence, which survived at this time in its original oak binding. It had been copied by Giuliano de Tonio of Prato. It was only missing one folio. A handsome missal from Perugia in Umbria was also dismembered. Dushnis bought it on Eggy's behalf at an auction in New York. It supplied a bounty of leaves with bright initials as well as charming historiated initials that Eggy could sell to more affluent buyers. Also mutilated was a manuscript now called the Limburg Antiphonal, only minimally defective. Eggy bought it in Los Angeles on his vacation, and he started cutting leaves out of it as soon as he got home.
These dispersals attracted attention. Criticized for his business as a book breaker or biblioclast, Eggy defended himself in an article called I Am a Biblioclast that appeared in a hobby magazine called Avocations. In this 1938 issue, he embraced an educational mission as well as the goal of democratizing manuscript ownership, claiming that to allow 1,000 people to have and to hold an original manuscript leaf and to get the thrill and understanding that comes only from actual and frequent contact with these art heritages is justification enough for the scattering of fragments. He also outlined reasons of completeness or quality that would prevent him from dismembering certain specimens. Perhaps his scruples were well-intentioned in 1938, but by 1941 he seemed to be violating his own pronouncements.
By 1942, Eggy had built a very prominent business with agents on the East and West Coasts. Eggy's branding explains much of this success. The Lima Public Library, and especially its head librarian, Georgie McAfee, were responsible for establishing the Eggy brand, which featured 1. Elegance. Clean, handsome, and highly decorative pages mounted in cream-colored mats with vermilion rules. His pages were meant to be frameable, and the mats provided with them.
Accuracy. Although Eggy was not an expert, he identified the text, explained historical context, and occasionally asserted the rarity of some items.
Number 3, representativeness. In part to groom repeat customers, Eggy selected pages with a variety of contents, dates, origins, and decorative styles.
Affordability. Eggy sold leaves for as little as 50 cents. Better ones cost about $5, which was not exorbitant during the Depression, especially for wedding or anniversary gifts. Elite clients could buy small miniatures or leaves with historiated initials.
Number 5, portfolios. Eggy prepared compilations of representative pages, beginning with the 1936 edition of Famous Bible's 9 Centuries. These were intelligently arranged and beautifully cased in linen boxes.
It is important to realize that Eggy's market was not bibliophiles, but middle-class Americans looking for affordable art treasures to hang in their homes. Both Eggy and Georgie McAfee in Lima never expected that anyone other than librarians and educators would buy manuscript leaves, but such small purchases in hard times brought joy to buyers who would eventually become collectors as they added leaves of different styles to their holdings.
A turning point in Eggy's business came from his relationship with Philip Dushnis. He had been selling consistently with Dushnis, who collected a 30% cut of total sales. It seemed likely, too, that Dushnis was handling miniatures, which the Lima librarians struggled to sell. By 1942, Dushnis had convinced Eggy to market to more serious bibliophiles rather than middle-class aficionados.
Dushnis devised a catalog of 101 original leaves and sets of leaves from medieval manuscripts in cunabula, and so on, dating from 1150. 18 separate portfolios were marketed in this catalog, 5 of which were comprised entirely of manuscripts. They included The Book Beautiful through 9 Centuries, 5 original illuminated manuscript leaves from the finer scriptoria of Europe, and 8 original manuscript leaves from the 12th to the 16th century.
In addition to these portfolios, Eggy listed miniatures in well over 60 kinds of pages, ranging in price from 50 cents to $40. For the first time, one encounters the well-known Beauvais Missal in this catalog, a lavish manuscript from the early 14th century. It bore an inscription saying it had been bequeathed to the Beauvais Cathedral by Robert Ongest for perpetual remembrances of him, to be celebrated annually on the 3rd of November. This manuscript belonged to William Randolph Erst before Eggy cut it up for museum-quality inventory.
Other constituents of broken manuscripts dispersed in this catalog include an Italian epistolary with tiny cantillation neumes painted in red, an early 12th century book of chronicles from the Abbey of St. Oyen in St. Claude de Jura, and innumerable Bible leaves of multiple formats. Eggy included old inventory as well as new.
This catalog of 101 original leaves and subsequent catalogs issued by Dushnis introduced more comprehensive scholarship and historical context on the fragments. The academic details boosted sales, but the verbiage had an unanticipated side effect, launching Eggy's reputation as a scholar of medieval manuscript culture.
Eggy's business expanded after the war due to pent-up demand. He could barely keep up with the requests for manuscript leaves. He cut up books as fast as possible. In these years, he devised a series of 3 portfolios for university libraries, banking on the GI Bill and the growth of university education following the war. The first was Famous Books 8 Centuries, which was published in 1948. It included 3 manuscript pages. An edition called Famous Books 9 Centuries was issued exclusively by Dushnis in 1949. The university market explains the peculiar emphasis Eggy had on the use of manuscripts in universities. The Bible page, for example, mentioned the Sorbonne, while the boilerplate for a folio of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics asserts that the University of Erfurt was the first in Germany to introduce into its curriculum the study of classic literature and the humanities.
Eggy died unexpectedly of a stroke in 1951. It took a few years before his widow Louise could continue the business. Around 1953, she issued Eggy's other university sets, both comprised of manuscript pages. Less well known is original leaves from Oriental manuscripts in languages like Arabic, Syriac, Ge'ez, Greek, and Old Church Slavonic, among others. Better known is the set called 50 Original Leaves from Medieval Manuscripts, probably the most celebrated portfolio known to be comprised entirely of manuscript leaves. In terms of textual genre, chronological range, geographic distribution, and decorative styles, it was one of the most ingenious productions devised by any bookseller. Its 50 pages dated from about 1125 to the early 16th century. Some were illuminated with gold.
They came from books of hours, Bibles, missals, breviaries, psalters, and from unusual specimens too, like Livy's Decades, Thomas Aquinas' commentary on the sentences of Peter Lombard, and the Aurora, a 13th century verse paraphrase of the Bible. A chic table of contents, letterpress printed in black and red, introduced each item, which boasted independent exhibition labels. The group was housed in a heavy box with gilt title blocks. The limitation of 40 numbered copies meant that 2,000 separate pages had been sequestered for the project. Each box sold for $600.
In addition to these portfolios, Louise Eggy also placed individual pages with various intermediaries nationwide. The Lima librarians were given some fragments to sell, but they always sought more. The business was shuttered in 1962 when Miss Eggy was diagnosed with dementia and entered a home. For a few years before, she had gathered the best manuscripts from Eggy's personal library and put them on deposit at the Cleveland Museum of Art. The collection included fine miniatures and cuttings, as well as more or less complete manuscripts, chiefly books of hours.
These manuscripts were all acquired by Yale's Beinecke Library in 2015. Hands down, the most interesting item in the group is the family album of 50 original leaves from medieval manuscripts. Eggy had made a habit of retaining the best or second best pages from these portfolio manuscripts, and this album held all of them. The collection as a whole remains unstudied, but it represents one of the few intact collections assembled by an American middle-class collector. Unfairly pilloried for a business patronized by librarians, curators, and educators for decades, Eggy is rarely acknowledged as a pioneer, but he should be.
Eggy's life and business represent a whole new era of medieval manuscript culture and book breaking.
Even though some people may find book breaking to be inherently offensive, Eggy illustrates the various motivations one may have had to do so. Join us next time as we demonstrate how to use the Schoenberg database to locate the parent manuscript of a single fragment to learn more about its provenance.